will be meeting with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Union Buildings in Pretoria today. Modi is on a state visit as part of efforts to strengthen trade and investment ties between the two BRICS member states. Our reporter Aldrin Sampear is at the Union Buildings to give us an update. Aldrin, a very good morning to you and welcome. Namaste.
Well, good morning, Elvis. Here, South Africa's rolled out the red carpet as we receive Prime Minister Modi here at the Union Buildings. President Jacob Zuma will also be arriving here at this official state visit. The President, as I understand, has already arrived, and right behind us we have the South African delegations, various ministers who are part of the delegation here. We've spotted the Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga, as well as the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Des van Rooyen, and various other colleagues from the executive of South Africa. We also have executive members from India who are also part of the delegation here in South Africa. And you could consider that the Prime Minister Modi is having his round trip around Africa and will be visiting 4 states. Yesterday he was in Mozambique, today South Africa, and he will be heading off to Kenya as well. But right now I'm joined by the spokesperson in the presidency, Dr. Bongani Ngulunga. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning. And I guess this is an event that South Africa really shows off what it can do, and strengthening ties with India as well.
Well, I mean, this is a historic visit by the Prime Minister of India. And let's just say that it is his first visit to the African continent as the Prime Minister. South Africa and India enjoy long historic relations. As you know, the first Indians to arrive in South Africa arrived 150 years ago. And then there was Mahatma Gandhi, who came here as a lawyer and was transformed into a global leader that we have come to know. And of course, when India became independent in 1947, one of the most important things that it did was to support struggles for independence in the African continent, especially focusing on fighting apartheid in South Africa. So we have a long-standing relationship with India. And what is going on today with the visit of the Prime Minister is to strengthen those ties between South Africa and India, especially in the economic sphere. So it is a great day this morning.
What are some of the specifics that South Africa will be looking into in terms of strengthening the ties with India? We know, for instance, after the India-Africa Forum that happened last year, there was the concessional credit that India has offered, about $10 million to Africa. Will South Africa be trying to tap into that amount?
South Africa will be trying to tap into that amount, but there are a lot of Indian companies that have invested in South Africa. I mean, there was an announcement, for instance, yesterday, that one of the pharmaceutical companies in India is opening a plant in Durban. I mean, that is valuing at billions of rands. And so those are some of the issues that will be discussed this morning between the President and the Prime Minister of India. But there are also other sectors. I mean, the manufacturing sectors. As you know, South African companies, especially in the financial services sector, are major investors in India. And India is Africa's 6th largest trading partner. And so the focus really of this visit is on strengthening economic relations so that we can grow our economy and create jobs for the South African people.
Another focus also that comes from the India-Africa Forum is with regards to sharing technologies and innovations as well. We know that India has been leading in the forefront when it comes to medical technology. We've heard how many Africans, an African head of state, would be going to India for medical treatment and so forth. Is that something that South Africa would like to see duplicated in our country as well?
Yes, it is. It is. I mean, the investment that I've just spoken about actually is that is for cancer drugs. I mean, that will be produced in South Africa by a major Indian company. And so there's one of the areas that have been identified for cooperation between India and South Africa. I mean, there are also other areas, especially in the IT sector. As you know, India has become renowned in that sector, and South Africa is trying to find ways in which it can benefit from that, I mean, and develop a strong IT sector in the South African economy so that it can benefit our people and our economy.
And speaking about the IT sector and as well as telecommunications, applications as well, there have been some sort of contention between, for instance, MTN as well as India and growing its footprint in India. They say they've found it very difficult. Do you think that this forum where you have the Prime Minister and the President sit down and you have the Minister of, let's say, the Economic Affairs from India as well as our ministers or the cluster of Economic Affairs sit down and discuss on how you can get South African companies to actually grow their footprint in South Africa, that this forum would definitely do something like that?
It will definitely do that. And by the way, after the official talks between the President and the Prime Minister, there will be a South Africa-India Business Forum where South African CEOs and Indian CEOs will be discussing the issues about how can they cooperate and how can markets both in India and South Africa be opened for investment by major companies in South Africa and India. And on the issue of the MTN, I think it is one of the issues that will be taken up so that we can strengthen our trade relations between India and South African companies can operate more freely in India.
And let's quickly touch on politics, stepping out of South Africa, looking at an international platform. The United Nations, for instance, we heard from the producers now that the Prime Minister of India has arrived here at the Union Buildings. There will also be later on a 19-round gun salute as the Prime Minister arrives here at the Union Buildings. Bongani, just to conclude this discussion, the United Nations Security Council, that's a big issue for India. They've been pushing for a permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council. South Africa's been pushing for an African country to have a permanent seat on that council. That hasn't happened last year. Do you think that this forum could probably, I don't know, from here on, what could South Africa and India do in terms of collaboration and trying to convince the United Nations Council that actually Africa and India deserves a permanent seat on the Security Council?
Well, the reform of the UN Security Council is a big issue, both for India and for South Africa. I mean, as you know, South Africa has taken a position now that there needs to be a representation of the African continent in the UN Security Council. So I'm pretty sure that it's going to be discussed at these talks. But remember also that South Africa and India are members of BRICS, and that is one of the main issues that is getting discussed there. And one good thing about BRICS, I mean, we have Russia, which is a permanent member, we have China, which is a permanent member. So we're pretty confident that there will be discussions there and that the matter will move forward.
Finally, last one is the nuclear suppliers group. South Africa is part of the nuclear suppliers group. India is applying to be a permanent member of that group as well. That application didn't succeed last month. South Africa didn't support it. China didn't support it. We have Russia that supported it. Do you think that there will be an issue that will be discussed here as well?
Well, I do not know whether the Prime Minister raised the issue, but South Africa has a long-standing position on the issue of nuclear, that we believe that nuclear should be used for peaceful purposes. I mean, and so that's a position that is known all over. And that's a position that we are ready to communicate to anybody who comes to South Africa for support of any kind.
Thank you so much. That's the spokesperson in the presidency, Dr. Bongani Ngulunga, speaking there to us about today's state visit by the Prime Minister of India. And there he is arriving now, walking through the precinct of the Union Buildings here in Pretoria. Quite a momentous day indeed, walking alongside President Jacob Zuma. This is the first state visit of an Indian Prime Minister in the past 10 years. The last visit was back in 2006 when President Thabo Mbeki was still the head of state. And now we have Prime Minister Modi here joining President Jacob Zuma as well 10 years later after that first state visit in 2006. And as Dr. Bongani Ngulunga just indicated earlier on, that quite a lot of issues that will be touched on, IT quite important for South Africa, and the economic affairs as well. And we were speaking earlier on about the India-Africa Forum last year that happened last year, where India agreed to a $10 million concessional grant that will be giving to Africa. Well, there you have the Prime Minister of and right now we'll be getting the 19 gun salute that will be taking place, and the Indian national anthem will be sung. that nearly completes the end of the official part of the first part, rather, of the ceremony here taking place, where President Jacob Zuma will now be introducing his national executive, the cabinet members who are representing South Africa here at this state visit as Prime Minister Modi visits South Africa. Prime Minister Modi will also be introducing his delegation, the Indian delegation, and his members of the executive as well. If you can see, there are various ministers right here from South Africa. We have there the Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga, as well as the Minister of State Security, Mahlobo. There we have the Minister of Small Business, Lindiwe Zulu. She definitely would want to tap into that $10 million concessional grant that India has made available for development here on the African continent. And of course, that loan is being made available to various countries on the continent. And of course, South Africa would want to tap into that, as Dr. Ngulunga earlier also indicated as well. And there you have it. That's the executive representing South Africa. That's the South African delegation. And right now we'll have Prime Minister Modi also introducing his delegation and all the members of the executive from India, who are part of those who will be signing on how to strengthen ties and relations between India and South Africa. And of course, another big issue is the issue around the Nuclear Suppliers Group. Last month, the Nuclear Suppliers Group, which South Africa is a member of, it's a 48-member group which controls the supply of nuclear material and so forth. And India has applied to be part of that group, but because it did not sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, they've decided not to, the members rather of the Nuclear Suppliers Group have decided not to support India's application. You have, though, the United States that is supporting that application. You also have Russia supporting that application. But quite interesting is that while you have India being a member of BRICS, you only have one country that's supporting its application, and that is Russia. Brazil, as well as South Africa and China, are opposing that application. And I was just listening yesterday to some of the outcomes of that Nuclear Suppliers Group, where it indicated the United States rather is saying that they're quite confident by the end of this year India will become a member of the Nuclear Suppliers Group. And there's also the issue around Pakistan as well, which wants to apply to be part of that group. And China is saying that if you allow India to be part of the Nuclear Supplier Group, you also must allow Pakistan to be part of that suppliers group. Well, now we have concluded the first part of today's session. We'll now go through to a photo opportunity where President Jacob Zuma, as well as the Indian delegation and the South African delegation, will be taking official pictures.
No, because you shop now. Maybe banana. And I was surprised, but the look at this person.